Today on Nova Legends podcast, I have South Lakes coach Jason Hescock, whose Seahawks just pulled off a huge win. I'm sure coach would not consider it an upset win, but it was over highly rated Madison, a defending state finalist. South Lakes themselves is 15th in the Metropolitan before that game. Coach, nice to meet you. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
No, of course. Well, let me get your bio here and correct me as I'm going, just make sure I get it right. You went to Rockville High School here in Montgomery County, class of 2000?
No, from Connecticut.
Oh, okay. There's a Rockville, Connecticut. Okay.
Yep.
So you're class of 2000.
The home of Bill Romanowski.
Oh, wow. Big football culture, I assume.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. Well, you graduated from Southern Connecticut State University. You got a master's in sports administration from University of Delaware. You also were linebackers coach there. You went to West Potomac and you were the defensive coordinator for many years and also assistant baseball coach, which puts you, that's similar to Justin Counts, who's also a baseball coach and longtime assistant in both.
I was also a wrestling coach, an assistant wrestling coach too. That's
right. Because in Rockville, you lettered in wrestling, football, and baseball, right?
And and state champs for baseball our senior year in 2000.
Wow, that's awesome. So you came to South Lakes in 2019 and worked for the great Andrew Duggan, who's he's DSA, your assistant DSA. I believe you're also a personal fitness trainer. Coach, did I get most of that right?
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah. When I first came in, it was Miss Sarabia Jones was the athletic director. Yeah. Then Leah Conte came in, but Duggan's been there the whole time too as an ADSA, and then got his promotion to DSA.
Okay, no longer terrorizing the officials on the basketball court as the AD.
So, at least from not as close as he's used to standing.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, why don't we start off with the big game against Madison? And this is the first time that I've seen you guys play this year, and I only saw the fourth quarter. I was going to try to go, but my daughter was cheering for Riverside and it was homecoming. But last year you had a 4-6 season. This year you're undefeated going into that game. They were as well. They had beaten you 35-7. Now I know you have a senior laden team this year. A lot of your starters back, especially on defense, are back this year. What was your thought process going into that game? What did you think you had to do to beat Madison?
Well, to beat Madison, they're a seasoned team. Like they've been to the playoffs. They've been in the big games, obviously playing in the state championship multiple times, almost expecting from that culture there. We knew we had to play as clean as we could play. And you never want to tell kids like, oh, you got to play perfect. You got to be great. Cause like the perfect football game's never been played, never will be played. Like that just puts more pressure on the kids. We just got to keep improving each week is really what our goal was. Like, and that's kind of been our mantra the whole season is like, we want to play our best game on the last game of the season. So if we're getting better every single week, mission accomplished. And Madison has been a game that we've circled on our calendar since last year. Like when we lost 35-7, we know that score wasn't indicative. I mean, we started that game off with a 60-yard touchdown right out the gate, first series. And we knew we could play with them. We had some, opportunities where we didn't really take advantage of it before we knew it. We got behind pretty quick on them. And we were just trying to keep that game competitive, but we just kept making stupid mistakes. And that game kind of got away from us last year, but we knew that 35-7 wasn't indicative. That's what everyone sees in the newspaper. That's what everyone sees in the highlight scores. Like all 35-7, they got crushed, but we knew it was a little bit of a different narrative there. So we circled that on our calendar since last year. That's been kind of our thing in the weight room. Like, what are we doing in the weight room? Who are we beating right now? Who are we outworking right now? Even in preseason camp, like we have a bad practice, be like, is that how Madison's practicing? Right? Is that how Woodbridge, Freedom Woodbridge is practicing? Is that how Oscar Smith is practicing? Is that how Highland Springs is practicing? Like, who are we getting up on right now? Right. So we've talked about not having bad days, right? At practice. Like we're going to make mistakes, but we can't have bad days as a team. So we've tried to eliminate those as much as possible this offseason. And, Madison's helped motivate us. That's what we've been using as a measuring stick just to see how good we really are. Everyone's been saying up to this point, haven't played anybody. Well, now we played somebody. And we didn't play clean. And there's a lot of mistakes, a lot of points we left off that board. So we know we can play even better. So we're excited about that opportunity because we know we're probably going to play them again.
Yeah. Well, we can get back to details of the game in a bit. First of all, when you coach at South Lakes has a long and storied tradition in basketball. It's the home of Grant Hill, Jerome Scott, now Jordan Scott, but many, many, many more great players played there, but also lots of good football players. When I played at Robinson, they had a guy named Teddy Carpenter, who was a famous comedian, but a great tailback, a guy named Willie Page, but my man Greg Jefferson. But there's been so many football players at South Lakes as well. How does South Lakes' basketball culture impact the football program? I know you have 3 really good basketball players, Aiden Billings, who did not play against Madison, James Shrunky, and Brian Kennedy, star point guard, who I think is going to have a breakout season this year. Could. How does that impact the football program?
Winning solves a lot of problems, and when you're used to being a part of a winning culture like the basketball team is, being, perennial powerhouses, the Northern region, Coach Desmond, not only is he a great coach, like, X's and O's, and I don't know a guy that spends anywhere near as much time on film like I do than Coach Des. And I mean, that guy just is relentless. But it's not only that stuff, like the coaches, the thing that you see him coaching, it's also the culture and the relationship building. And when you're used to that culture and that's just an everyday operation of how you run things, and then that starts to bleed into your program, that's a great problem to have. Like Aiden Billings was a guy we had to talk into playing football his sophomore year. And when he was seeing what was working for the culture with the basketball team, and then realizing Coach Des and I are, on a text relationship basis every single day. He knows that we communicate, we talk to each other, and the stories are consistent, and the same messages that we're talking about as coaches are consistent to our teams. He was like, all right, I can rock with this. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of bleeding into our culture, which is a great thing to have. So, winning really solves a lot of issues.
Would Brian, James, and Aiden be better football players if they didn't play basketball? Would they be able to spend more time in the weight room? And do you think their success on the basketball court has made them better football players?
Man, the ultimate hot point conundrum. I love it. Yes, no, absolutely not. Like, play multiple sports. Like, it makes you a better person. It makes you a better athlete when you're developing yourself in different areas, like, running backwards and forwards. Receivers running forwards all day, right? How many times are receivers running backwards? So, they're on the basketball court. Yeah, you had a fast break, but now you got to get back on defense. So they're backpedaling, going forward. They're shuffling. They're doing all these dynamic movements in all these sports that are going to help them in their other sports, but making them a more well-rounded athlete. Like, absolutely not. I want those kids shooting basketballs. I want those kids working on their free throws. I want those kids walking through different defensive and offensive plays and sets, like, because that's going to help their spatial awareness on the football field too. Like, this is all relatable. And any football coach will tell you, sometimes we don't want to admit it, but the game of football is turning into basketball on a 53 and a third yard wide field. And all we're doing is spacing guys out like basketball does, or cramming guys in like basketball does. Those little rub routes and stuff that we do, man, that's pick and roll. I've been doing that since day one on basketball. So these skills are relatable. And it's not only just basketball. You got wrestling, you got throw a shot put, learn how to use your hips. Like, man, I love our kids just developing themselves as a holistic athlete and using some of those movement patterns that apply to football, but all sports.
Yeah. Well, how about your wonderful principal, Kim Brophy Retzer? I think I got it last name right. Last time I called her Kim Brophy, and Andrew Dugan, the AD of all seasons. How have they impacted the football? Is it true that they said if you didn't win region this year, you'd lose your job?
That hasn't been told to me, but I don't pay attention to all that, all the stuff and the writings on the walls. But all I'm worried about, I'm worried about developing kids. I'm worried about making good young men and young ladies. Because, not only do we have players, but we have managers. We have 2 young ladies on our team, as well as a bunch of female and male managers helping out and being our support cast. So I'm more focused on just developing them as people, making good people in this world. Because, man, we need better people in this world nowadays. So that's kind of my goal. And, winning a region, feel the pressure. It's all good. All good. I was a pretty strong player myself. I got a strong back, but I got a great support staff, man. I mean, the administration is great to work for. Principal Retzer she will call me into her office and as I'm just passing by the finance office every once in a while, and she'll be like, "Hey, on that 3rd and 4, what are you thinking?" Like, she knows football, and she'll question me and she'll challenge me on different play calls and different scenarios, and so it's great to have that support. Just at this school, the place is a special place. I never feel like I'm wanting or needing anything. Just great people. They really care about not only sports, but just developing these kids holistically. And that's kind of, I guess that's why I got the job, because it kind of, I fit that mold, that it's a shared vision of the school, and also what we try to do with our football program.
Yeah. Who was your high school football coach, and what did you learn from him?
Tom Dunn, Coach Dunn. That man saved my life. I never played high school football. I never played football till high school. Freshman football was my first time. So I relate to a lot of our kids. We have a population that's very similar to that. I would say probably about 80% of our kids, their first time playing football is freshman year. But going back to my high school coach, man, I didn't really have I grew up without a father in the house, and I immediately latched on to my football coach. Obviously, it's the fall, it's the first season of the year, and what he did for me was just teach me accountability. And he was an old, tough, old school Army boxer. The man had 2 plastic hips, plastic knees, but he was as old school and just cold and dark. But man, I loved that guy. All I wanted to do was make him smile, make him proud of me. Coach Dunn was a classic old school guy. I can't say that enough. All you got to do is look up Army boxer back in the 1950s and 60s. You'll know what I'm talking about. But that guy just taught me accountability and hard work. Like, no one outworks you, right? Like, nobody outworks you. Coach Des is always picking on me. I'll be in my office watching film or doing a weekly schedule or whatever I'm doing. And he'd be like, "Man, go home. There's nothing new to watch," right? And I'm just like, no, there's just no one's going to outwork me. And that's just something that's always stuck with me. Like, in order for me to put my head on my pillow at night, I got to know that I'm outworking people. So that's just who I am. That's what Coach Dunn taught me. There's always something extra you can do. It takes no talent to stay late and do extra work. Talent will take care of itself, but it takes no talent to do the little extra thing. So that's just kind of how I live my life. And, thanks, Coach Dunn. He's still kicking up there in Vernon, Connecticut. He's riding around his bike and his little spandex, running around the whole entire rails to trails up there in Connecticut. But don't let that spandex fool you. That's a tough man right there. Do not challenge him.
I just finished my rails, the trail ride this morning before I was talking to you on a WOND. So who did you work for, West Potomac, and what'd you learn from them?
I worked for a few coaches. I worked for Coach Eric Henderson, who's at Woodson right now. And then Jeremiah Davis came in. He was the head coach for us. Then he left and went to Herndon, and then it was an assistant for a few years at Westfield as a defensive coordinator. Now I think he's out in Loudoun County. And then I had Jeremiah Ross was the coach at West Potomac. And then he recently stepped down, spent some more time with his family. And when Coach Ross, I was there. I left when Coach Ross was still a head coach, and it was just realizing I reached my 10-year mark at West Potomac and just felt like it was time for a change, time for me to take that next step. Because, I was a college football coach for 6 years, and one of my goals was to become a high school football coach. I really wanted to become a head high school football coach. And I felt like I was there for 10 years at West Potomac, and I was like, it's time. I'm ready for that next step. When I left college, I wasn't really ready. I had to learn what was going on in high school, all the politics and all the other stuff and all how that works, and dealing with parents, because that's something you definitely don't do in college. You don't have to deal with any parents besides recruiting visits. So I had to learn how to deal with that and how to get my schedule and how high school works and all the ins and outs. But after my 10 years at West Potomac, felt like it was a time for me, and was really excited that to get this South Lakes job. It was definitely something that was kind of like the dream job that I was waiting to apply for. And when I got called back for a second interview, I was super excited about that.
Yeah. So are there things about being a college coach that you prefer? I mean, obviously you can focus on the football. There's no parents, but you have to recruit. Whereas high school, you're not really supposed to recruit. even though it does happen. But are there things about the college game that you like better than coaching high school?
Man, I mean, there are things about the college game, and I haven't been in the college game since 2010, so things have changed a lot since then. But back when I was a coach, one thing that I got reminded of really quick is, in college, at least those kids have a minimum SAT score to be sitting in that seat. Now that's even old school because SAT is not even required anymore for NCAA standards. But when you're sitting there in college, you can run an hour and a half to 2 hour position meeting. That's normal. That's pretty normal to do an hour and a half meeting every day, right? High school kids, they can't handle a 30-minute meeting, right? Like the attention span's just not there, right? Everyone's not going to be a college football player, but in college, all those people are there. They got notes, they got notebooks, right? They're taking copious notes because they're fighting for playing time. So obviously there's that level, right? That academic, that ability to focus, that's something you see in college. Obviously dealing with, I made a joke about dealing with the parents and stuff like that, but that was one of the most fun parts of the job was the recruiting aspect in college, dealing with the parents and seeing them all come in, because everyone's excited, right? Everyone's excited when they're coming in. They want to see all the pretty stuff. They want to see all the, they want to see the weight room. They want to talk to the strength coach. They want to talk to the academic advisors, and they want to see the study halls, and everyone's excited. That was a really fun time, but there's definitely pros and cons to both. Coaching in college, was great because that's all you do. I go in at 6 o'clock in the morning, 5:30 in the morning, start with my daily routine, whether it be, whatever was on my cut up list for that day or the theme of the day, getting through practice, grading the previous day's practice, sending my kids the cut ups, getting ready for my meeting midday before the practice. Everything was just all football all day. My only break was to go check kids during class checks. Right. So, basically every hour and a half, depending if it was a Monday or a Tuesday, going down there, getting our kids with grades, doing the class check. Hey, meet me at the clock tower. Boom. Check. Hey, so-and-so's not here. That was great. Working in college, it's football all the time. Right. High school, obviously I got to teach that's the job that pays the bills. So that's my first and foremost focus. So teaching these kids, working in the weight room every day. There's definitely, the cons to high school, right, is there's so many distractions, right? There's so many distractions, and the kids got to find a way to weed through that. They got to find a way to, balance their school, teaching them time management, and how to have time for your school. So building in time for study hall and stuff for our kids. All those little things are, things that we work on every day.
Yeah. Well, when you go from being an assistant coach to a head coach, had you thought much about what type of head coach you wanted to be? There are so many different styles of coaching. There's the inspirational type. There's more of the X and O's, kind of the Tom Landry. That's an old reference, but kind of the guys, more of the cerebral type coaches. There's many types of head coaches. And then you have to manage assistant coaches, which is huge in football because one person can't do it in football. So had you thought a lot about what type of head coach you wanted to be, and what kind of transition was that when you became a head coach?
Man, that's a great question because, coming from college and when you're an assistant, you're observing the head coach all the time. You're always in meetings, staff meetings, player development meetings, athletic training room, weight room, whatever. All these meetings coming together, and you're watching a head coach in college run at Runway. Then you go to high school, and I'm like, man, this is so different from college. And so, I had the opportunity, Coach Henderson gave me the opportunity to work at West Potomac. I was so grateful for that opportunity. And I was not ready to even be a coordinator in high school, even though I came from college. I know the X's and O's. There's so much more that goes into football than just the X's and O's, though. Like, you can be a brilliant mind, but you got to work with people. You got to learn how to what makes kids tick. Sometimes you got to be a motivational speaker. Sometimes you got to be a psychologist. Sometimes you got to be a tutor. Right. So you got to wear many caps. As a coach, honestly, you go back to my coach, my old high school coach, Coach Tom Dunn. I was hoping that I could just be that person for one of my kids over the course of their high school career. If I can help one kid like my high school coach did for me, man, mission accomplished. Like, that guy changed my life. and forever grateful to him. And that's just kind of how I lead my everyday going into this, right? But now that I'm in it as a head coach, man, you're pivoting all the time. You're changing your focus and what's going on. Like right now, I'm an offensive line coach, right? And I've been a defensive coach my entire life, right? I think I was an offensive assistant at Southern Connecticut for a spring. Okay. But other than that, I've been a defensive guy, a linebackers coach, front seven, secondary, whatever. Defense, I got you, right? Offense, man, now we're cheating. You give me the roadmap. Now I know where the play's going every time. So I had to flip my mindset. And, when I first started, I wasn't a position coach. When I first started, I was more focused on getting my staff together. I didn't really have a whole, nucleus staff yet. So I was putting that together. And I was ready. I was prepared to be the defensive coordinator and a position coach if needed. When hirings happened, I didn't need to do that. So I had to shift my focus to program development, right? So what am I developing? What are my cornerstones? And what am I trying to get done as a mission statement for this team? So that was my focus for probably the next 2 years. Then I had a great assistant coach that had to leave, moved far away. It was just too much of a commute. I stepped in as the offensive line coach, right? And had to shift my focus. So I feel like I always have to be able to step in and do whatever's needed as a team. I kind of see myself as a servant to this program as the head coach. Like my job is to step in and do whatever's needed, right? Whatever gap needs to be filled, whatever's slacking, I should be able to increase the value of that area as the head coach. So that's where I pivoted my focus to at this point. And I anticipate that I'm going to have to keep pivoting as I move forward as a head coach. Again, my job, I kind of go back on my statement to say that, my job as the head coach, I'm a servant to the program, whatever's needed.
You ever go back to when you first started as a head coach and think, well, I didn't know anything back then. I've learned so much in 4 years. I mean, are you a much better head coach now than you were when you started?
Man, I was the best head coach when I was an assistant head coach, because I thought I knew it all. And I was like, man, I'm critiquing this guy, that's wrong. We should be doing this. Man, was that humbling to become a head coach and you don't know. And every head coach, I hope there's head coaches watching this and they're shaking their head right now. And they're saying, you don't know until you sit in that chair. When you sit in that chair, now you're ready. And now you see what it's really like. And now all those things that you saw other guys do start to make some more sense. And it's not real until it's real, So, yeah, go back to the question there. What was the question that you were?
You're much better. You answered it. You're a much better coach now because you don't know anything when you first started, and until you get into
I thought I had it all figured out, man. I thought I had it all figured out. I go back and I look back at my first year. I'm like, man, that was dumb. That was a silly mistake. Why was I focused on that? Why am I worried about the freaking hoodie design over, developing, what's going on with our academic progress reports? Like, yeah, priorities, bro. Right. So I was trying to get myself right. And I'm still critiquing myself. Got a little journal I keep and write something every day to keep myself straight and honest.
Yeah. What advice do you give to South Lakes, you get lots of great athletes and like the basketball players we talked about, and there's more. I only focus on them because I just happen to know them, but I know you got a great all around team. A lot of these guys can grind out college careers, and you were there. You were at Delaware, and I believe it used to be called 1AA. I forgot what they call it now, but it's a
FCS football championship series.
Yeah, it's major college. What do you say to these great athletes about grinding out a college career? Because it's a numbers game. You have to really want it. It takes away from your academics. And so there's never a guarantee because there's a lot of great athletes out there. So what do you say to kids since you've been to college and you've seen and you played yourself and you've seen kids have to, make those sacrifices?
Well, it's just getting more and more competitive, whether you agree or disagree with the college climate that's going on with, the transfer portals and, NILs and all these other things going on right now. It's even more competitive. The number of kids that are being offered scholarships have been cut in half. If a team was taking 20 scholarships, they're now only going to take 10 for incoming freshmen because they're just going to sit in the transfer portal because the model that's working for a lot of the teams that are winning is they're taking transfers. And that's every level, Division I, Division II, Division III, like those transfers are going everywhere. Right. And that's a huge gamble on yourself too, because you enter the transfer portal, you've just given up your scholarship at that school. So if you're not picked up, you got to pay tuition now. right? So it's a gamble. So I think they got to revamp some of this a little bit, the NCAA, but you got to really want it, right? And so many of the kids, and something, you know, that I've noticed, especially in Northern Virginia, like some of these kids want to go Division I or bust. And it's like, if you're getting an opportunity to play in college, any level, Division I, II, III, NAIA, that's less than 1% of the high school athletes get an opportunity to play in college at the next level. Less than 1%. You're already elite, whether you're NAIA or Division I. You're already elite, right? So a lot of these kids are, turning down these Division II and Division III opportunities because it's not Division I. And kids are not realizing, like, Division III has all-state athletes as well. Yeah. Division II has all-state athletes as well, right? Just maybe not as many of them. Division I, they're all-state athletes. So, you got to understand that. And so if you're getting that opportunity to play at that next level, you got to really want it, because they're going to take the best of the best, right? And then if not, they're going to replace you next year with a recruiting class or the transfer portal. So it comes down to academics. The biggest heartbreak that I have to have is usually that junior year talk, and that senior year be like, hey, you are or are not recruitable 100% based off of your grades. And that's a hard reality for these kids to realize. So they don't focus on the grades until their senior year. But by that time, if you have 3 years of bad grades to try to correct by your senior year, just not going to happen. So if there's any athletes listening to this and parents, man, keep your kids honest with their grades, keep them accountable with their grades from freshman year, right? 3.0, right? That's kind of that magic, that magic marker, man. 3.0 and above, you're going to have some type of a scholarship that you can apply for at every level of football, and that'll help all athletes.
Yeah, and the fact that SAT is meaning less means that 3.0 is going to mean more. So you spend a lot of time at West Potomac, and then go to South Lakes, both very diverse populations. Generally, how do you see the athlete at West Potomac as compared to South Lakes? Very similar, or are you getting different kids than you coach at West Potomac?
Very, very different. Very different types of kids, but there are some similarities. West Potomac has a very unique population. The kind of the middle class is not really represented at that school so much. There's a high free and reduced lunch and a lower middle class type population that's there, and then there's a very, very, very elite high upper class there that kind of lives over in that Mount Vernon corridor on the water. I love West Potomac because it was like a combination of, it's like a beautiful thing of seeing two different cross sections of, socioeconomic backgrounds blending together in a school, succeeding, playing on teams together. Man, it was beautiful. Like, that's what life's all about. But it does create its challenges too, because some kids are naturally just, hey, I went to this elementary school, I went to this elementary school, and they're all stuck in these proximity wars. So some kids don't step out of those comfort zones. But a game like football, like, we don't got no time for that, man. Like, it's football. All creeds, colors, cultures are welcome here. Like, we're going to need you to succeed. So let's come on over. So football was a nice little melting pot for that. South Lakes is a little bit different. We have a great core of, like, some great families, great support systems. More so than what I experienced at West Potomac, but there's some great families over there as well. But here at South Lakes, man, there's just more, right? There's just more support. There's more people willing to help out. Feels like a community. You kind of get lost over that. I mean, Alexandria is ginormous. I lived in Alexandria and have passed 3 high schools before I got to West Potomac, right? And I could go to the store, no one would recognize me. I go and fill up my water bottles, or go get a bag of chips from 7-Eleven or something, and I've already said hi to 5 or 6 people, before I live less than a mile away, right? So, like, I've seen 5 or 6 people in this community. It's just so much more of a presence. That's one thing that I've noticed, and I think that's important, because the type of athletes and the different type of people, that's going to change every year. That's going to change. You got to look at housing prices. How much is rent? What's that going up to? That'll give you an idea of the type of people that you're going to see at your school next year. But Yeah, I've noticed that just here, the support at South Lake's so much more of a community feel that I just love. I just felt welcomed right away. And I know that affects our athletes, right? That affects our athletes when they feel like it's not just my parents that are going to help me. Somebody, Jimmy John's parents are also going to help me, or Sally Sue's parents are also going to help me. Like, that's just such a different feel and a comfort that's just really cool to experience.
Yeah. Well, Coach, we talked a little bit about the basketball players because obviously I'm a basketball guy and we focused on them. I know the Washington Post and others who I've talked to have mentioned your physical defense. So talk a little bit about your team. Where are the 23 Seahawks? How would you define them?
Man, our defense picked up the flag this year and just ran. And offense, man, we're following them, right? We're following them because they're leading this team right now. I'm super excited. Not to take anything off. Right? I'm an offensive line coach, so I got to be an offensive guy, right? But defense, it's still deep. But the defense is just making this old coach happy here. It's trying to eliminate some of these grays in the beard. But man, they're playing hard. They're playing physical. Coach Justin Gadenzi, the defensive coordinator, has really got those kids bought in. But this started in our green days in the spring. Like, we started in March, just doing simple, basic, everyday drills, doing some tackling. You're seeing that. You're seeing that hard work pay off, the things that take no talent. Now it looks like we're incredibly talented. No, we've just outworked people. We've been doing this since March, right? We've been working on our fundamentals, things that broke down all last season for us. We not only have we been working on the field, but these kids and the defensive kids, there's a 10 out of the 11 are seniors that are starting on defense. These kids would ask us to just, hey, coach, can we go to a room and just watch film together as a defense? We don't even need a coach in there. Now, the coaches would always go in there because we want to hear what they're saying too and help them facilitate the film a little bit better. But these kids ran meetings on their own. They wanted to watch film. They wanted to see what's going on. They wanted to do the things that take no talent. This defensive group is special. They're hard-nosed, they're physicals. And if you plop these kids in like 1993, they would fit right in. They're just hard-nosed, physical, and they're ready for that level of game too.
Yeah. Well, when did you know this year that you had something? So I noticed the Washington Post elevated you about 2 weeks ago, and I think there was still some doubt because you guys were 4-6 last year, and no one knew the strength of your schedule, and you're winning games pretty easy, but it's still hard to tell until you really play a team. And obviously, the Madison game, the first 3 possessions, you guys had field goal attempts, and you made one of them, and very easily could have been a bigger score early, and you end up behind at halftime. But obviously, at that point, you knew your team could compete at a very high level. But when did you begin to believe that this team could be special?
Man, first time I realized this team was special, I would probably say was day 4 of practice. It was a Thursday, and it was our first day of shoulder pads, and we were doing a thud drill. Thud is a tempo that we use for practice. In case people don't know, I know you're a basketball guy, but thud is where we are going to go to contact just like a real hit. We're just not going to bring you to the ground, right? And that's as an ex-college coach, and I know a lot of our high school coaches can probably sympathize with this. When you say thud in high school, it's not always exactly the tempo that you want. You still got kids falling on the ground. High school kids have a hard time understanding how to practice at that tempo. Our first day going full thud, and there was no one on the ground. There were kids controlling their bodies, playing fast, loud collisions, staying up. That's when I knew. I was like, man, I'm not even going to make a big deal about this. I'm going to talk to the coaches about this in our meeting, but that's the first time I've seen a thud practice that looked like a college thud practice. Right. And that's when I knew that we're pretty freaking good. Now, we still got to compete against other people because, you get caught in those camp eyes. You're used to dealing with the same people every day. You're going against that same opponent that's giving you a look, and their weaknesses in and out. Now what it's going to be like when we go up against South County. And then we went up against South County, and everyone's like, "Oh man, they're doing these camps over the summertime, and they're hitting Highland Springs and all these scrimmages, and man, they're going to be really good." And we thumped them. Like we matched them. It was a nice competitive scrimmage. Both teams got what they wanted out of it, and I looked at my kids, and like, we can be pretty good, don't you think? Then we get into West Potomac. Again, it was nice for us. I have a good relationship with those coaches still. Coach Louisville was excited to still scrimmage us over there. He's doing a great job with those guys at West Potomac. But we got a chance to see some athletes, right? You're so nice saying that, we got all these great athletes, right? We've got to develop a lot of athletes, right? Mm-hmm. We don't have a lot of those. We're not blessed with those 4.4, 4.5, 40 kids. They usually start about a 5.2, 5.4, and we got to develop them into a 4.6. So, there's a lot of kids we got to develop, but we got to see speed. So one of the things we really wanted to see was, see South County, see some tempo, see some physical football, then see some West Potomac, see some speed, see a similar style. They run a similar style offense to us, although they changed a little bit. But it was really good for us to see two different types of teams that we're not normally going to see in different styles of football, because we also know we got to prepare ourselves for the Concord. But after those scrimmages, the coaching staff knew how good we could be. I don't think the kids knew, because in a scrimmage, you're still playing, hey, the ones are going to get so many reps, the twos are going to get so many reps, the threes, and so on and so on. So the score of the game didn't really give the kids a lot of confidence, because it was still close and competitive, because there is a big gap between our twos and threes. But we as coaches knew, man, when our ones are on the field and they're clicking and we're healthy, we're pretty good.
Yeah. Well, let's get back, fast forward to the Madison game. And first of all, what was the difference between this year's Madison team and last year's? Now, last year's, they had Angelo Dredge, kind of a power back. This year, the running back's more of a speed guy. New quarterback. They have a whole bunch of new parts, but same result. Still a very scrappy team, kind of a bend but don't break team. Even if you move the ball on them, they always find a way to win. That's that kind of team they are. But how would you compare the Madison team from last year to this year?
They do all the things that you expect the Madison team still to do. They're tough, they're physical. They're going to play right up to the whistle and even a little bit after it if it's allowed. And you got to match that intensity. You just got to know going into that game, it's going to be tough and physical. The one thing that stood out was that they play a little younger. And that's not a knock on them. Like that, they're going to be really, really strong and a really, really, really good team. And maybe we woke up a bear, and we got to be ready for that, because we're probably going to have to play them again if we do what we're supposed to do, and if they do what they're supposed to do. But they just play a little longer. Like there was some mistakes in big areas on big downs that we capitalized, they didn't. And some of those kids that were seniors, like I think they had two returning starters on their defense, right? They had multiple seniors, but two of them were returning starters from last year. That experience does something. I think that's the first time that we've played a Madison team where we have more experience than them, right? Because we have a bunch of seniors that had to take their lumps for 2 years previous, because they've been starting since sophomores. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of experience there that I feel like really got us through that game to manage those moments, those big play moments. Like I think of that 4th and 3, that first 4th down that we had, and quarterback had a check down for a nice little easy first down conversion. Instead, he throws the deep ball, which in my eyes is still a touchdown. I'm still not sure why we were down on the 3 after looking at the replays and all the end zone views and all that good stuff. But it still should have been a touchdown, and that would have really helped the score out. But that's a big time throw right there by Nick Harris, and a big completion with JP Neves there on our sideline. That's a big risky throw. He definitely had the check down. But you got to be able to make those throws with confidence. There was no hesitation. It was 4th and 3. Didn't even phase Nick. He was like, "Yep, it's open, throwing it. I can make that pass." So again, just makes you happy when the kids have that confidence to be able to execute like that.
Yeah. How did you feel and how the kids feel when you have three drives right out of the gate and you only get 3 points and you end up down 7-3, even though you probably, I don't want to say dominated the game, but you probably had a better play early. Was that disappointing to you and the kids, or just made you more determined?
I mean, for our kids, it fires them up. Our kids are like, that's a missed opportunity. Like, that's on us. And all they want to do is get it right. Like, our kids have this kind of saying, is like, he's like, I got your back. Like, I'm going to pick you up. Like, so we kind of talk to each other. Like, if someone makes a bad play, like, I'm going to pick you up. I'm going to do the things that take no talent, give it a little extra effort. I'm going to pick you up. Right. Cause I might need it one time. So the kids had that kind of culture, like, hey, don't worry about it, man. Like, and the block was just a misalignment issue on us. We were just a little too tight, a little too misaligned. So we made some adjustments and we're okay with that. And then there was another Dallas shift issue and debacle that I still have an issue with, but whatever, we can talk about that later. But our kids were fired up to try to get that right, to try to make it right. And, going into it, it's like we scored first. That's one of our first goals. Score first, win the first quarter. And, we were winning 3-0. But I was like, that could have very easily been 10. My calculation, we left about 20 points off that board. So when I go back through that game, I was like, yeah, it was 12-7, but there's 20 more points we could have kept up there.
Yeah. One of the biggest plays of the game is when Harris hit Brian Kennedy for a touchdown. He was able to beat a couple of defenders to get into the end zone, kind of got you over the hump. Tell us about that play.
Yeah, nice little RPO play for us. Run pass option. So it's kind of got a dual threat. We can run the ball, we can pass the ball. A lot predicated off pre-snap read and then post-snap whatever movement. And just a simple zone play, a little quick screen. So we got both a zone and a screen attached to that play. And pre-snap read, Nick liked the look, threw it out to Brian Kennedy. Good block by James Shunke. And basically we had a 2-on-2 situation. It's basketball. So a little basketball 2-on-2 opportunity there. Brian went up and got the layup in the paint. Nice block and nice pick by Shunke. Put it in basketball terms. That's basically all it was.
Yeah. Well, Coach, we've talked to 12-7 is a very rare score in this day of 28-24.
Sounds like playoff baseball.
Yeah. It is. Yeah. Yeah. It's an old school score. It's kind of football that I could identify with, because every drive is so important because it's so hard to score. Instead of, nowadays, it's going to be, a crapshoot towards the end. Anyway, why don't you tell us about some of your defensive personnel? We've mentioned some of your stars on the offense, but I want to, how about some of the names? And I know it's a little risky because you want to leave anybody out, but can you give us some of your star defensive players?
Man, I'm going to leave somebody out because every week it's like, this kid's hot in my head right now, man. This kid is on fire. This kid is sitting on dynamite. I love it. Man, I mean, number one who stood out to me was Xavier Legler. Had a great game. That kid was block destructing all over the field. Number 13. I'm just so proud of that kid and his development, what he's done over his 4 years, man. He did a great job. Big lacrosse player, right? Football is not his first love. He's a big lacrosse guy. So we got another multiple sport kid. Jacob Kiger, middle linebacker captain. Another kid, you could drop him in 1986 and he would just fit right in with his jean jacket and patches. That kid's a throwback right there. Hard nose, 5'11" linebacker, but just bringing the heat every play. When he hits you, he's going to hit you. Number 44, Cameron Dice, second year playing football. Doesn't play like it. He's been a baseball kid his whole life. Big, strong kid. Over 315-pound bench presser. Kid is just phenomenal. Another captain for us, middle linebacker. Got Jack Schnabel, safety, fastest kid on our team. There's our 4-5 kid we developed right there. Jack Schnabel, safety. Another captain for us, number 1. Smart, cerebral, fast, physical. Does the little things right. Very rarely misses tackles. Very rarely. Huge stat. Very rarely misses assignments. Usually getting everyone back there. He's kind of our quarterback back there on our defense. Obviously, Brian Kennedy going two ways on offense and defense. Does a great job at corner for us. We got Joe Redican. One of the twins, his brother Sean tore his ACL. Had some surgery there. Another basketball kid too. He's wearing his number now. So he took his brother's number 24. He was wearing 7 at the beginning of the year, but took his brother's number to finish out the season. As Joe Reddick in there wearing it. You got Jojo Chaudhry, Armand Chaudhry, number 17, another senior kid who's developed all the way. Misha Zarachnik, number 15, corner for us. That kid's had some defensive player at the games, having some big games. Had a little bit of a groin issue last week, so that he's been trying to nurse back to health. So we saw him favoring it a little bit and decided to rest him instead of having to push through it to finish that game in the second half. Man, up front, we got this isn't a senior, Amari Thaxton. He's one of our black shirts. On offense and defense, we have black shirts at practice. If you wear a black jersey, that means you are the epitome of what we want out of a football player in person here at South Lake. So to wear a black shirt is an incredible honor. And he's a junior for us, number 93. You have Savion Grant, broke his arm early in the year. Kid was almost devastated because he thought his season ended. He got permission and his arm set just right so he could wear a cast. Now he's in a soft cast. That's number 90, senior defensive lineman for us, doing phenomenal stuff. Kevin Velez, Chicken Velez, they call him. Kevin Velez, number 75, defensive lineman. Man, just a warrior, man. He's a gladiator. That kid, he got so mad. He slowed up and stopped the screen single-handedly. Was so mad that he missed the tackle, but didn't even understand how much he slowed down the runner just by breaking down and getting in pursuit. Kid's a road dog right there. Got another one, Tyler Andre, basketball kid, first year playing football. He says, man, I regret not playing football. This is the most fun I've ever had in my life. And just flying all around, number 14, playing some safety for us. Actually helped us. Misha was a little banged up, so he went in and went in at safety and helped us to finish out that game as well. And I know I'm leaving some people out. I know I got John Clark, another basketball kid, another basketball player, playing some middle linebacker for us. I know I'm leaving someone out and someone's going to get upset at me. But man, you could just keep going with the names with all of these kids. These kids are special on defense, and I'm so excited.
Yeah,
so excited that they're on my team.
Exactly. Well, it was a great moment when Madison has won so many games in the fourth quarter the last few years, and the reaction. First of all, when you stopped them deep in your territory in the fourth quarter, that was a great moment for South Lakes. But the moment after the whistle blew for the final time and the kids ran towards the fans, that was a very special moment.
Yeah, so that's a proud moment to me after every win, and the reason for that is that's a tradition that we started here as a coaching staff, and I actually brought this from Delaware. When I was a lowly grad assistant at Delaware, I was in charge of teaching all of the incoming freshmen the fight song. And I had to teach them. We literally would have fight song practice for just the freshmen every single day during camp. And at the end of our preseason camp, the freshmen had to go one-on-one and perform the fight song in front of the whole team. One by one. You're talking 25, 30 kids would have to go one by one. And we would split it up every day. So these kids are practicing their fight song, whatever. Brought that over to South Lakes because I realized I know they had a fight song. I was flipping through an old yearbook and I'm like, oh, here's a fight song. It's cool. We should teach this. Go to the band director and I'm like, hey, do you have the fight song? And he goes, no one's ever asked me for that. He goes, yeah, we play the fight song, but I don't know if anyone even knows it's our fight song. I go, we got to fix that. So one of the first ththings I wanted to do is to create that tradition where we're going to sing the fight song after every win. And so I got again, great support here. Student leadership gave me a sound bite of it. I put that on our Google Classroom page, and we'll practice it as a whole team at camp. We go through the words, and when those kids run over to the fence, it makes my heart so happy after handshake to see the kids sprint over to our student section. And when it's a home game, our band's included in there, and we'll play it live right on the ground with the student section. And to hear our kids, my first couple of years, they didn't know the words. Like, they faked it. I kind of led that a little bit, but they know the words. Like, they know the words. They teach each other, and kids in our hype squad know the words. Man, that is so powerful to me. Like, you talk about tradition and things that they're going to be talking about 40 years from now. Like, that's the stuff that's what this is all about, man. So when I saw those kids sprint over to that fence line, sing that fight song with the hype squad, That's cool. Like that's big time. That's big time.
Yes, and it's something you can continue to build on as the season goes as well. Well, let's move on. I know I don't want to leave anyone out here because I know as a coach you don't want them to look ahead, but I know you have two perennial northern region teams on your schedule. You have Centreville and you have Westfield, and I know Westfield beat you last year soundly, 40-15. Did Centreville beat you guys last year as well, or did you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We lost. Yeah, we beat Chantilly and Oakton last year, and we lost to Centreville, Westfield, Madison.
Okay, so you got two games on your schedule that are crucial if you want to remain in first place. So talk about those games. I know you're going to take them one at a time, but Westfield is beaten Patriot this year. A very, very talented team. So they're going to be a difficult challenge. So anyway, talk about those two games.
Yeah. Well, first up, Centreville. Good team. Good program. Historic program. They get athletes over there. They get a bunch of kids. They got a strong football background. Kids playing football since they were 6, 7, 8 years old. They already have more experience than a lot of our kids at the younger levels. Our freshmen and our JV team don't care how great. I mean, they care about how great our varsity are doing, but that does not help them on their Thursday nights when they play their game. So they got to bust their butt to catch up with the youth football hump, right? So make up for some of those years they didn't play youth football. So Centreville is going to be a big focus for not only the varsity because you never want to say trap game because Centreville deserves more respect than that, but it's not necessarily a trap game. We got to stay focused game. Like we got to finish what we started. Like 8-0 is great. 8-2 would suck right now, right? So we got to make sure we stay focused for that Centreville. They're still dangerous. They're still got a bunch of kids out there, but for our lower levels, they're gonna have to catch up this week. So we're looking forward to a very, very competitive at those lower levels. To make sure that because those kids, I think we got beat at all levels. I think we got a sweep last year, so I know our freshmen and our JVs are going to be hungry to play that game as well. But for the varsity, they're just young. From what I see on film, from cross trade film that I've seen, or some scores, or and I know Coach Shields. We talk, text quite a bit back and forth, especially in the off seasons. So I know he's young. He's got a lot of sophomores that are playing for him, and I know that on our staff, it pays off. Like we started sophomores too, 2 years ago. We have a saying though, you lose a game for every sophomore you start, so you got to pick those wisely. I think that's the kind of situation that Centreville's in right now. But it's going into week 9. A lot of those sophomores they're seasoned, they're experienced now, right? So there's almost no excuses. So we got to be prepared. They're varsity now. I don't care where they were game 1. It's game 9. They've had experience and they've gotten reps too. And then obviously you got Westfield, right? Westfield's, always a team that you want to beat because, before Madison was picking up the flag and running up to the top of the hill, it was Westfield picking up the flag and running to the top of the hill. So you got teams that are seasoned. Westfield's got a bunch of ex-coaches on their staff as assistants, and those guys have been there. I mean, the collective coaching experience on that staff is ridiculous. So, they've been there. You're going to get you're going to get a good scouting report. You're going to get a team that's prepared for you, which, it's a blessing and a curse to play in the Concord. Yeah, it's a gauntlet. Yeah, every week's tough, but you're prepared for the playoffs.
Yeah.
Right. There's no team that survives the Concord that gets out into the playoffs. Right. Very rarely does the Concord lose first round. Very rarely. And their experience for that next level, because that's just what we see week in and week out. It don't matter what the records are. Like last year, we were 4-6, but our schedule was totally different last year. We had the hardest schedule that this school, the South Lakes football program, has ever seen ever since you could calculate strength of schedules back with max preps and all that stuff. That schedule last year was ridiculous. And we missed the playoffs by 0.1, not 1 point, 0.1. A tenth of a point, right? So the smallest margin that you could miss the playoffs by last year. So we were 4-6 playing in the Concord and still almost made the playoffs, right? Wow. So that's what this conference does for you, right? Yeah. So you got to give every school the utmost respect. It doesn't matter how successful we're being right now, right? We could break 2 shoelaces and a shoe and be missing a mouth guard, and we can get to some JV starters real quick, right?
Yeah.
So we got to make sure that we're preparing ourselves and developing our kids, and staying humble, because we're making mistakes, right? We're making mistakes on film, and our opponent sees that. So we got to make sure that we've cleaned that up and dressed it up to play our best football at the end of the year, which has been our goal since preseason camp.
Yeah. Well, one thing, and we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves here, Coach, but one thing that's been done is pundits like me have been complaining about the way the state tournament has been structured over the years, and that the northern region, the former northern region teams, northern and Occoquan region teams, play in the semis. So therefore, there's always a guarantee of a Fairfax, Arlington, Alexandria team in the state finals. Well, this year they finally listened, and they've scrambled the state semifinals. So it's very likely the winner of Region 6D will play Freedom in the state semifinals. What do you think about that? To me, it's exciting, but is that something that bothers you or interests you at all?
Honestly, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I got to prepare for one game every week, and I got to prepare for the team that won. And if it's the playoffs, like, it doesn't matter. You're going to have to see them anyways, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I mean, it's next guy up. Like, roll the ball out. Let's play, right? Like, I'm ready to go with whoever you line us up with. Talking about fair, that's way above my pay grade. I don't think, and here's why. Like, I don't think there's an answer. I don't think there's a perfect solution. I do like the rotating thing. I do like the rotating the regions between A, B, C, and D, and just kind of seeing who's playing each other in the semis. But with the PowerPoints, like, are PowerPoints perfect? No, right? What would you suggest? A coach's poll, right? Would that be perfect? No, right? Like, there's flaws to every single system. You can't make everybody happy. You learn that real quick being a head coach, but you can't make everybody happy, and you're not going to, especially with playoffs and power rankings. Someone's always left out that feels like they should have been in. Like, just win the games, right? Win the games and make sure you get in. Like we tell our kids, like, the referee should never influence the outcome of a game, right? Same thing with one football game or one PowerPoint system. Like, just win more games, right? Like last year, was I mad at the PowerPoint system? No, there's 2 games we should have won that we didn't.
Yeah.
So there you go. Win more games. Like, I'm not mad at the PowerPoint system. We should have won 2 games that we didn't. If we did, we'd be good. Would have been fine. No questions asked. We're clearly in. But I mean, I like the shuffle up. I mean, am I excited about playing like a certain team over another one? Like, no, I mean, I would love to have a nice fast track to as deep as I can go into the playoffs, right? But you're still gonna have to play that team for the big championship trophy or whatever, anyways. So what's the difference? To me, like, there's no third place trophy. So yeah, I mean, you got to play them. You got to play them anyways.
Yeah. Well, look, Coach Willis, this has been great getting to know you. Obviously, I can see why you're so successful. I go to a lot of the South Lakes basketball games. People have been accused me of bias, but I know Kim has been trying to get me to go to a football game. She accused me of being on the Madison sideline at the game on Friday, and I was at the Rivers. I was on the Riverside sidelines up here. So, but I definitely plan on catching the Westfield game. And anyway, just wish you the best of luck the rest of the season. Hopefully, it'll go well for you guys. I'm sure it will. And maybe we can talk again before or after the season's over.
Always, man. Look forward to it.
Yeah, great, Coach. Thanks again, brother.
All right, take care.
All right, man.